Hello friends, hope you all are doing good. Today in this video lesson, we're going to cover the second step of IFRS 15 revenue recognition model, which is identifying the performance obligation in the contract. In the previous video lessons, we have already covered the step 1, which is identifying the contract with the customer. In case you have any questions, please feel free to visit to my channel and watch that video. Thank you so much. Coming back, now what is a performance obligation? So as a seller, I need to identify what I need to do for the customer, and that should be identified. For example, let's say if Jio is selling a phone to its customer, or it is also selling the SIM card along with the data and the calling. So it needs to identify what are the promise or the performance obligation it has in the contracts. And we also need to understand what are the timing of this obligation. For example, if Jio is giving the phone to the customer, it is giving that at a particular date on the purchase date. However, the calling data or the SMS, all those are coming over a period of time. For example, 6 months. So the first performance obligation can be satisfied immediately, while the second performance obligation gets satisfied over a period of 6 months. Now let's understand this with the help of few examples. For example, take the example of a carrier company which is selling the air conditioner and it is also selling installation services. Now, will these two be considered as a single performance obligation, or will they be considered as a two separate performance obligation? As a customer, I can buy air condition from carrier, but I can also get it installed from anyone else also. It means the AC and the installations are considered two separate performance obligation. So if you remember, I have also told in my previous video lesson that we need to look from the perspective of the customer, what the customer is expecting. Let's take another example. Suppose a customer wants to buy a machine from a supplier in China, and the customer wants to get that machine installed at its workplace. Now this machine, specific machine, to be working as per the requirements of the customer, needs to be installed by the same supplier only. In this case, the machine and the installation will become a single performance obligation. Let's consider another example of a car dealer. Let's say the car dealer is selling a car, assurance warranty, and the extended warranty to the customer. Now, will these three be considered as a separate performance obligation or a single performance obligations? Let's see that. Now, assurance warranty is coming from the manufacturer, which means that the product will continue to function as it is expected. So it cannot be brought separately. However, this warranty needs to be accounted as a provision under IAS 37, the provisions and the contingent liabilities. But the extended warranty can be sold separately also by the dealer, or it can be bought from somewhere else also. So which means that if I have any problem or any defect in the car, and if I take to the dealer in that extended period, they can fix it. So car and the extended warranty would be coming as a separate performance obligation under IFRS 15. However, the assurance warranty will be accounted as a provision under IAS 37. Consider another example of a telecom service provider. I've already given this example, which where Jio is selling kind of a handset or a calling minutes, SMS, and the data. So all these things are coming over a different period of time. For example, handset is given on the date of purchase, but the calling minutes or the data or the SMS pack is coming over a period of time. So four of these will be considered as a separate performance obligation. It means it all depends how the company is charging. Let's say a software company, for example, SAP is selling a license. Along with that, it sells the customization and the technical updates to the customer. Now, for this license to work for the customer specific business, it has to be customized for its specific business requirements, which means the license and customization cannot be considered as a distinct and is considered to be a single obligation. But technical support or updates can be considered as a distinct service from the suppliers. Till the time I'm not customizing that license, it is of no use for the customer, right? So the license and the customization together will be considered as an integrated product, while technical updates will be considered as a separate performance obligation in this example. So in this example, which we saw of the software company, a customization or the modification was required, and integration services were required so that the software can work as per the customer requirements, and those were interrelated and interdependent. Hence, those two were not considered to be a distinct services. Now, we need to understand the performance obligation in the case of a principal versus agent as well, because what principal would be recognizing, what agent will be recognizing, what will be, who will be the principal, who will be the agent, that needs to be understood before we recognize what kind of revenue, before we understand what kind of revenue needs to be recognized by the two parties. So let's understand this again with the help of some example. So put it simple word, an agent is a person who sells goods on behalf of the principal. Now in today's e-commerce market space, right? For example, Apple sells its iPhone or lists its iPhone on the Amazon, and Amazon then sells its iPhone to the customer. Now I have some questions here for you. Who is selling or who is giving the product to the customer? It is Amazon. But who is responsible if the price of Apple or price of the iPhone goes up and down? Can Amazon decide what will be the price of the product on a big billion sales day? The answer is no. It will be decided by Apple. Similarly, Apple will be responsible for bearing the risk for any unsold inventory of the iPhones. So, Amazon is just acting as a market space who is facilitating to sell goods on behalf of Apple here. Which means Apple would be principal and Amazon will be agent. So Apple will be recognizing a revenue of the gross sale amount, and Amazon will be recognizing the commission. Now let's understand another example. For example, Indigo Airlines sells tickets to Make My Trip. Now, Make My Trip has already negotiated with Indigo Airlines to purchase the tickets at a certain price, which it is directly selling that to the customer. Now, it has agreed to buy the specific number of tickets and it has to pay for those tickets to airlines before it is selling, whether or not it is able to resell those tickets to the customer, right? Now, who is responsible here to take the customer from Delhi to Bangalore? Is it Make My Trip or will it be Indigo Airlines? So let's understand that Make My Trip is responsible to assist the customer in resolving any complaints with the services that are provided by the airlines, which is Indigo. However, it is Indigo which is responsible to fulfill the obligation that is associated with the tickets, including any remedies to be provided to the customer for any dissatisfaction of the service. So it will be the Indigo who is responsible to fulfill the obligation on the ticket to take the customer from Delhi to Bangalore. However, who is giving the right to fly or right to a ticket for a specific flight to the customer, or let's say if the flight schedule is changed or cancelled, who will be responsible? It is a responsibility of Make My Trip. And Make My Trip will also be responsible for any unsold tickets that are not being sold to the customer, because Indigo has already sold the tickets at a reduced rate, which is a negotiated price. And now, whether or not Indigo is able to resell or not, it is the responsibility of Make My Trip. So, in this example, Indigo Airlines is just acting as an agent for the customer. However, Make My Trip is the principal who is responsible or who controls the tickets or the right to fly on a specific flight that is given to the customer before it is transferred to the customer. So good or asset from the other party that is transferred to the customer. Who controls that? In our second example, it is Make My Trip that controls that. But in the first example, the iPhone was under the control of Apple before it is getting transferred to the customer. A right to a service to be performed by other party, which gives the entity ability to direct the party to provide the service to the customer on behalf of the entity. So this could be an example. Let's say if an entity enters into a contract with a customer, or it is providing a office maintenance services, right? The entity and the customer will agree on the scope of services. And let's say the entity which is providing the maintenance services, or which enters into the contract with the customer to provide the maintenance service, it engages any third party vendors or service provider to give those services to the consumer. Now the entity obtains the contract from the customer. The entity also enters into the contract for providing those services with another third party service providers. So in this example, the entity observes, or it looks at, that it is not committing itself directly to obtain the services from the service provider before it obtains the contract with the customer. So entity in this case, like in case of maintenance service contract, will be acting as a principal in the transaction, and therefore it will be recognizing the revenue of consideration which it is getting entitled to in exchange of the office maintenance services. So this is what we have in the performance obligation in case of a principal versus agent consideration. In the next video lesson, I'm going to discuss with you the third step of the revenue recognition model, which is determining the transaction price. Until then, in case you have any feedback on any of these lessons, please do feel free to leave your comments. And in case you have any specific questions on any of the IFRS standards as well, please leave your comment. I'll be more than happy to make any specific video or address your question. Thank you so much.